Nice one, Jen. You alright, guys? I'm the world around you, and this is Pause for Thought on Threshold FM. Now, this week's going to be a bit different. I want to try a slightly different idea. It's going to be the same as previous weeks. Like, don't get me wrong, but it's the things that I've researched that I'd never fill an hour. So I've come up with questions and that over the past few months that I've been doing this, and before when I've been writing some of my books and that. And the bits that I've never been able to either fill, like pad it out, or never really led me anywhere in particular. But I thought, I've put the time in for it, so I thought I might as well share them with you. So this week, it's just simply, we're just asking questions this week. Firstly, I wanted to know if the Earth actually has two moons. Now, by moon, I don't mean just the big thing that floats with, the alleged cloning facility inside that fucking sucks water up towards the moon itself somehow. I just mean organically orbiting satellites. And I was shocked that the initial research on this didn't actually mention the Black Knight. But I'll get into that a little bit later. That's probably the only little bit of structure you're going to get in this week's episode, to be fair, guys. That's probably about it. But I want you to cast your minds back all the way to February 2020. First, do you remember anything weird happening around that time? What about in April 2020? Anything peculiar happening in your lives around that time? Horoscopes enthusiasts might blame the alignment of the planets, but mainstream scientists claim that during those 3 months, the Earth actually had a second moon. So, at the start of this year, I'm recording of 2020, from around February, April-ish time, late winter, early spring, we had 2 moons, mate. And this isn't the first time that's happened either. In 2006, we had a second moon from September until June the following year. So September 2006 till June 2007, for those of you that aren't that good with maths. But looking at the proposed orbits of RH120, which was the original second moon, the name of it, the names of the moons aren't all that good. Like, realistically, our moon's not really got a good name, it's just moon. But the original second moon itself, as I say, RH120, is fucking terrifying. On at least 3 separate occasions, this thing looks like it comes close to hitting the Earth. So, and I know that because I watched videos of the proposed orbits that this moon took, and it just seems like pure fluke that it didn't just fucking wipe us out entirely. And who knows what effects that's had on Earth, as a lot of scientists seem to say that if a celestial object comes into close orbit of the Earth, then it would have a cataclysmic... do you pronounce the second A? Cataclysmic. Detrimental effects on us, causing floods and other natural disasters. But did you know that in early 2006, NASA launched a probe out towards Pluto, and by the next year it had already reached Jupiter? So it's feasible that it passed by Mars on the way there. Maybe, depending on the orbits and that, but you would imagine it passed by Mars because they use a thing called I think it's called slingshotting or something to the equivalent of, where they use the orbits of other planets in order to propel a satellite forwards or a spaceship forwards. And what if it disrupted something, or it disturbed someone? Maybe the Martians noticed it and thought, fancy that, the kids have found the rockets. Shit. Or, maybe they just looked at it and thought, the fuck is that? Because maybe they don't even know that we exist, just like we don't allegedly know that they exist. But what if they decided then that they were going to send out their own probe towards Earth? Now, it took us, a good few months to reach there, but maybe this was their first attempt. Maybe we're more advanced than the Martians. Maybe, that could be a thing. Not many people really play on that idea, but we could be. We could be the most advanced civilization in at least our solar system or in our galaxy. Why not? There's no reason why we couldn't be. Weirder still, though, what makes all of this a bit weirder about Mars and that, is that in March 2007, Mars, the chocolate brand, released Mars Planets, a bag of chocolate balls. But could this have been a subtle way of big corporations trying to ready the population, if you like, of Earth for the idea of extra planets and from visitors from Mars and the idea of new small orbiting rocks? We may never know. We may never know the answer to this. But let's have our first song. This is the newest song by Bugsy Malone. This is Don't Cry featuring Dermot Kennedy. The more recent moon we owned for a while is known as CD3, and this, along with RH120, are known as TCOs, temporarily captured objects. Temporarily because CD3 left us in April 2020, off to live its own life, and make its own way in the universe. But it turns out that the Earth and CD3, just weren't right for one another, and it just needed a little bit of space. When Earth captures a TCO, though, it's considered a sign of luck, not officially or by the Chinese or even by horoscope enthusiasts, but I'm saying it's a very lucky occurrence for our planet, to catch a TCO, because to capture a TCO, it needs to hit the Earth's gravitational pull at just the right angle and just the right speed. Like, literally, there's like a fucking tiny little gap of like what would be considered sort of quote-unquote perfect. Otherwise, it'll be flung away. But if it's coming at us any faster, it'll fucking wipe us out, mate. It'll fucking kill us all. It will be like the dinosaurs, forced to fucking dig our way under Earth and live in the hollow Earth. Or maybe that's where, like, soil comes from. Maybe soil comes from planets hitting our planet, or, like, asteroids hitting our planet. And then the dust, like, maybe that causes some form of chemical reaction, maybe, in the atmosphere. And, now at the minute, we've got lots of nitrogen, so maybe the chemicals or the expulsions from the reaction of the asteroid coming through the atmosphere could possibly react with the nitrogen, and then that nitrogen would fall into the soils, and then maybe we'd have big plants again, because realistically all you need for plants to grow well, as any aquarium enthusiast knows, or even a horticulturist would know, you just need nitrates in the soil, which is nitrogens and that, So maybe if we was to have a second moon hit us out of nowhere and react with the nitrogen in the air, that would probably change the makeup of air in the atmosphere. But maybe it would all like settle down as ash and soil, and that would be where soil comes from. Anyway, I get back onto moons. I meant to have a look at things that could have happened because of our extra natural satellites. In that year, within the first one, within RH120, when that was. Well, when it was in the air, there was something in the air, But, so what I found was Saddam Hussein got hung. Now, that's a pretty big deal. Whilst not explicitly tied to an extra moon as such, there are links to space if you believe the stories that are told about Saddam's Stargate and links to an alien species. But he got hung in December 2006, so maybe this so-called natural moon was actually a spaceship, and they waited to kill Saddam until December, midway through the moon's visit. Give or take, a couple of months, because maybe the new moon was at its closest point to the Earth, so they could witness the death of their ally. Maybe they saw this, and as soon as they could, they fled our planet. But maybe they never left us entirely. Because did you know that there is a sort of moon, not in the sense of it directly orbiting the Earth itself, but there is a celestial object that follows the Earth on its orbit around the Sun, and this object is called 2016-H03. Again, they're not great with naming stuff. They're very clever people, like scientists and astronomers and that, but not all that creative, unless you believe what the flat earthers believe about NASA. In that case, then NASA's probably one of the most creative government-funded. Well, I don't know if they are government-funded, but whatever they are, the group of people that seem to, according to flat earthers, run the planet. But that would make them very creative. But going off just the facts in front of me, they're not very creative realistically, because like 2016-H03 or H03, it's not a great name. And H03 as well, which makes you think that in 2016 was there another two. Again, we don't know. Not a question I explored. But could 2016-H03, could this object be an alien spacecraft? Could it be the server that powers the holographic Earth? Could it be a space rock that wants absolutely nothing? It just happens to be following us. It is possible that it's the remnants of planet Theia, the planet that many believe collided with Earth billions of years ago, the one that shattered and created our original regular day-to-day moon. But I'll tell you what, Theia sounds a lot like Freya in a way, especially in my voice, Theia and Theia, And Freya was in Norse mythology and had something to do with forests and life. And in the last Airbender that I covered a few weeks ago, we learned of a forest spirit and the moon spirit and how they may be connected to one another. So could this rock chasing us through the solar system actually be a living organism, that watches over the Earth? Maybe that's where the stories of the so-called Watchers comes from, that supposedly watch us and make sure that human beings keep on the right track and that. But one unusual event during the visit to Earth from RH-120 was a blackout that spread right across Europe, leaving many countries without electricity. And this happened on November 4th. One day before Guy Fawkes Night, which I believe in itself is a celebration that is repackaged around the earth, where a whole country releases chemicals and light pollution into the air to mask a secret operation, or maybe like the alien departures or arrivals from Earth. I mean, why else would the government allow us to celebrate a known domestic terrorist unless there was a reason behind it? It must cover something. You know, like in Lucky Number 11, where they say everyone looks left, but you should be looking right. As soon as everyone starts looking at one thing and believing one thing, you should look and consider the other. But that is just a film. Also, in 2006, there was a deadly virus sweeping across the nation. In October of that year, the same time as when RH-120 was knocking about, which may hold a striking resemblance to the most recent visit by CD3, I guess, except back in 2006, the illness was E. coli and it was spread by spinach. Could this have been an attack from the aliens? Maybe when we've sent packets of information into space, we included a Popeye cartoon. Maybe the aliens saw this and hoped to stop our super soldier program by infecting spinach across the country. Maybe they were unable to directly translate the word spinach though, and they could work out that it was a leafy vegetable that caused superhuman strength in sailors, so that's why some people were getting E. coli from lettuce and all. Perhaps the reason it was both spinach and lettuce was so that no one could work out that the aliens infected the spinach, and so that the governments of the world they wouldn't have to own up to them being at fault, you know, or for lying to the aliens about the capabilities of leafy treats on Earth. Perhaps the US government decided to also infect the lettuces of North America in order to stop people working out it was an alien attack. One of the films that raises questions about this second moon in late 2006 is Superman Returns, a film that came out in 2006. It seems strange that they would have a film about an alien returning at the same time as an alien object enters our orbit, almost like it was planned all along. There was a tsunami in 2006 and all, but that happened in July. That doesn't mean the little moon wasn't responsible. It just means that maybe we were lied to about its arrival. Maybe it arrived in July rather than September. They could possibly, already be lying to us about the lettuce, so who's to say that they're not lying to us about these second moons and all? Anyway, it's time for another song. This is R.A. the Rugged Man on a track produced by Classified with vocals from David Miles. It's a fucking tune, not gonna lie, it's a bit dark. It's called Wondering, or How to Believe. But what if these so-called moons aren't natural? What if they are spacecraft? Is there any evidence for that? Well, I did a little bit of digging, and some people believe that these extra moons are pieces of space debris left over from when we've launched rockets into space. But have you ever heard of the Black Knight? I mentioned it at the top of the show, and now the only reason I know that this thing exists is because when I was flying from Tokyo to Sapporo in Japan, I saw two what seemed to be quite big opaque shapes in the sky. One of them resembled like a donut, like it wasn't perfectly round, but sort of like a donut shape, in the sense that it had a hole in the middle, not like a jam donut or a custard donut, but like a ring donut sort of shape, best way of describing it. Which I've never found anything out about that. I've looked and I've looked, but I've never seen anything about it. And I think this is one of the reasons why I got more and more into weird shit like this, because I saw that and, well, I tried to. The other one looked like a sort of long triangle shape, I guess would be the best way to describe it, like a triangle, sort of like that. Imagine if you was to do, well, in the UK, before like Coronation Street starts or something, you got the product placement logo, which is like a big P and a little P, which sounds a lot like docking, but it's nothing to do with willies and out like that. It's just a letter P. If you imagine a letter P, like how you'd write it in school maybe, when you're doing bubble writing, imagine that but without the middle. So it's just solid. It kind of looked like that, but instead of being rounded, it was more jutted. Anyway, I saw that, and while staring at it, and we'd flown past, and it didn't really look like they were moving so much. I wouldn't have said so. We were moving, obviously we were in a plane, but I was watching it through the window and I pointed at it to the Japanese person behind me. Unfortunately, I didn't have the communication abilities to be able to tell them what I was telling them to look at, but they did look in the direction of it. They paused briefly, and then they looked back at me and gestured to me to stop watching, like covering their eyes, pointed at me, sort of covered their eyes, and like twisted their head quickly as if to say, "Don't look, don't be watching it," and started shaking their heads at me. I thought, it's a bit weird, this. And I mean, was it a hallucination brought on by a weekend of solitary binge drinking, coupled with the eating of the painkillers and flu remedies available on the shelves of chemists in Tokyo? I'm not entirely sure. What's weird is that I remember it still to this day, and after a fair bit of searching I found out about the Black Knight. The only thing I can see that this seems to resemble for what I saw during that flight. Now, I don't know what I think it is. Honestly, I don't know what you would describe it as, like, realistically. Like, there's options. You could say it's a big piece of rock, it's a weird floating rock that goes around the earth, or it's a spacecraft, or something like that. But I would say that, honestly, I don't know what I would say it is. Like, I can describe the shape, and obviously it was opaque, so it looks dark, but I couldn't tell you what it was. But I did look into a thing that Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about in an interview on the Late Show, and that was also called the Black Knight. But the images that the artist's renditions of it was like a long cylindrical object, whereas the commonly accepted Black Knight is more of a triangular shape, not like a equilateral triangle, but the one that's got all different sides, different sized sides, which is a weird thing to hear in my own voice. Definitely though, not a cylinder, not like a cigar shape about. And he goes on to say that it might not even be a solid shape, it could just be made up of dust, of like space dust. But what if it's made up of light though, or gases? What if it's ethereal? He doesn't go into it, he only alludes to this because he's on the show just to sell his book. But what could the Black Knight be? The so-called photographs of it that were taken in 1998 from space, these photographs were allegedly taken on the same day that an insulating blanket made of aluminium that got away from the astronauts on the space station on ISS, apparently that came loose, and then they took photos of it, and then people got hold of it and said, "Oh, this is the Black Knight," and that. But could it be? And I looked into that as well, and some people say it is, because the creases of this piece of tinfoil, because apparently there's no reason why once something's scrunched up in space it's not going to unravel. There's no gravity in that, is there? So it's just going to stay as it is and stay as that weird crumpled shape. And some people have worked out the maths, and they worked out that the insulating sheet is the Black Knight because of the creases in it are the same. But in the video, like, where you see the sheet coming loose, it doesn't look nearly big enough to have been what I saw from that window on the flight. So again, maybe what I saw was a hallucination brought on by a weekend of drinking. I don't know. But what about historical accounts of the Black Knight? And how does it link to Nikola Tesla? Is it an observation deck? Maybe that's what it could be. It could be an observation deck of some sort, like the moon in the Truman Show. Let's have a song. This is from the newest Exhibit album. I played a song from it a few weeks ago. It's Exhibit Be Real and Demerick, and the tune itself is called Normal. Apparently, the Black Knight is over 13,000 years old, with the odd story spread throughout history. But a fellow we all recognise associated with the Black Knight is Tesla, who I just mentioned before the exhibit played. Whilst he was fucking around with some radio signals, fired them into space and that. I mean, the details aren't really that important. I don't know much about Tesla off the top of my head. He managed to pick up some signals, though, coming back from what he believed to be aliens on Mars. That was in 1899. It's not until 69 years later that scientists say that he may have been correct about those foreign radio waves. Although they concluded it may not be Martians sending these signals, but instead it could be some piece of technology floating in the void of space that was emitting these ominous radio waves. So, within 100 years, we've had one of the greatest scientists and inventors acknowledge the Black Knight, then other scientists alluded to it, then, 99 years after Tesla, there were photographs of it taken by NASA. Other tests with radio frequencies have been performed since Tesla's alleged findings, and they managed to have their signals bounce back almost immediately, which suggests whatever is bouncing back the waves is in close proximity to the Earth, suspiciously like the Black Knight. A former Marine called Donald claimed in 1954 the US Air Force detected two of these satellites that weren't man-made and didn't seem natural. Donnie claims that these satellites were put there by aliens, presumably to spy on us. So, and we'll have another song. This is a proper classic. I'm sure you all know it, innit? I would have thought. I'd fucking hope. This is Beanie Sigal's Feel It in the Air. Now, there's always been a part of me that's wondered if ghosts exist, and how come we haven't invented a way to trap and enslave them? Maybe, we could turn them into a workforce, or a military unit, or a power source. So, let's look into that for a bit. Firstly, when you explore this corner of the internet, you're hit with a bit of a warning about there not being a way to enslave a ghost, as there are no ghosts, only demons, and that demons will in fact enslave you rather than the other way around. So, if that's the case, why can't we enslave demons, or angels, or whatever the ethereal entities are? They'd make great workers. They don't experience time, so wouldn't necessarily need pain in any conventional ways. If they're able to use time in any direction, then you could make them do a job that needs doing. Like, say you've got a job that needs doing by next Wednesday, in time for next week's show at 12 o'clock on Threshold FM. You could send these aliens back in time, these demons, send them back in time to 4 weeks ago and have it ready a week ago. Now that's good. That's what the corporate world needs, man. And they could lay all the groundwork for an event that no one even knows in that time where the groundwork's being done that event's going to even happen. Obviously, there are some people that believe that is how the world works, and that's how people make things happen, by doing things like that. Anyway, say you're in the military or you're in the Secret Service and you're in a high-speed pursuit. You need to know that you won't get hit by a lorry at a junction whilst you're chasing down the potential terrorist. You're driving down, you're swerving in and out of the cars down that street in New York that everyone seems to drive down, where that big hotel is in GTA 4, where you have a couple of missions in. Down that sort of street there by the park. You're swerving in and out of the cars, but you need to know that the lorry, the Arctic, the truck, whatever you call it all over the world, that's not going to come out of a junction and just T-bone you. So how do you do it? Well, you have a chat with your little demon counterpart, don't you? Now, I'm thinking the dynamic between you and your demon counterpart would be similar to like Randall and Hopkirk, in Randall and Hopkirk Deceased. Anyway, you have a chat with your demon fella, and he says, no problem, I'll sort that. Because I imagine the demon wouldn't want you to die, because you are in effect tying this demon to our plane of existence, giving it power, or on an emotional level, you're at least validating its very existence. It might have been lonely for millennia, and now it's got you paying attention to it, and it's like, you know what, this is alright, this got a little mate here, just keep him alive, keep me occupied for. And then he struggles to remember what, how long you would say 80 years is, because he doesn't know what a year is. Anyway, I imagine, being like that for your little demon counterpart, your little Hopkirk, that's got to be a lovely feeling for an ethereal entity that exists for all of time and never even gets a nod when it walks down the street. Could you argue then that there's a lot of demons maybe hiding out in the south of the UK? Possibly. That's one of the things that gets thrown around a lot, I guess, that not many people let onto each other in the street down south. And I as someone who lives down south now, I agree people don't. And is that because a lot of the people down here tend to be ethereal entities? Again, we may never know. It's not something I looked into. But anyway, getting back into the little high-speed chase, the demon guy's like, alright, Bravo 1, no worries. And he goes back in time to find the driver of that truck that was due to cross that junction in 20 seconds from now. And it records the truck driver filleting another lorry driver at Knutsford Services. And, well, I've already said it was in New York, but he's a transatlantic delivery driver. He's got an hard job. Anyway, he films the truck driver filleting another lorry driver at Knutsford Services, and then it takes this evidence forward a few days to get it to the lorry driver's wife. Now, this creates some problems in the lorry driver's home life, and he's kicked out by his missus and forced to live in his cab. The heartbreak leads the lorry driver to turn to alcohol, and he ends up getting very drunk the night before the chase takes place, and he falls asleep in his cab. Except he leaves his radio and his headlights on, because he's pissed, meaning the battery drains and the cab doesn't start in the morning, and this makes him a little bit late for his delivery that day. He loses his job, and now he has nowhere to sleep, but it's perfect for Bravo 1, because now that truck no longer poses a risk to their life and they can continue their chase through the city centre. And the beauty of this is, that demon fella, he can keep doing this constantly, and it would be like he's barely even, like he might not be there with Bravo 1 in the car as they're driving at that point, but maybe he can speak to him telepathically, keep in touch. But maybe he can just go dart back and forth in time, because how long does it take to take a photograph? Really, not all that long. And he just does that and then goes and delivers it to his wife or whatever, and he could go and do it for all these fucking drivers, all different fucking mad schemes. That'd be a fucking sick TV show, mate, or a fucking weird film. That sort of relationship as well, it feels like it'd be mutually beneficial, because these demonic entities are said to thrive off of humans' negative emotions. Something that, again, I've said before, I don't fully understand, but the demons love the saltiness of a tear. By allowing the demon to travel back in time and fuck up this lorry driver's life, it allows the demon to feed on the negative emotions of the heartbroken wife, the lorry driver, the angry emotions of the lorry driver's boss for missing the delivery slot. The next 115 or so years, whilst their children grow up without a father figure in the home, gives the demon an almost limitless supply of negative frequencies to feast on, all making him stronger in the process, so that he can help with our Secret Service missions a little bit more. Whereas like a ghost, doesn't really have the powers of a demon. It's more like a reflection on a pool of water, except the water's sort of the air all around us, and the reflection is usually more of a shadow being cast from a nondescript light. Bad analogy, but either way, it seems to be that the ghosts are something that don't really have power on the physical realm, whereas it is believed that demons and angels can. But they've all got to be energy of some sort, or give out energy of some description, so what if that's what fossil fuels actually are? What if coal, oil and natural gases aren't actually any of these things that we're told they are, and that's just sort of a pseudonym for extra-dimensional beings? What if that's what wars are actually fought for? What if wars are conducted in so-called oil-rich environments because they're not oils, they're actually feeding grounds for demons? Maybe the demons are under the ground, possibly in the hollow earth, maybe in the caverns between the gap between our earth and the hollow earth. What if demons aren't just extra-dimensional beings, but what if they're the tall creatures that, according to Phil Schneider, dwell deep in the deep underground military bases, but they're able to physically project themselves onto Earth, existing in two places at once? Maybe they are all highly susceptible to sunlight, or maybe the nitrogen I was talking about before, maybe the nitrogen in our atmosphere, so they send their psychic versions out to explore or hunt. That sort of makes sense. It adds up, doesn't it? If you use all that logic and only apply the, again, loosely using the word, they only apply the facts that I've given you in this week's episode. It makes sense for the psychic projection, astral projection, psychic viewing, whatever you want to call it, that the US military was involved in the past. And weirdly enough, I'd actually, this is weird that I wrote this before fucking the start of last week. Or a week before doing this, sorry, that's a little... if you've missed War, our episode on War with me and Jimmy, Tinfoil Jack and Conspiracy Jimmy's Truth Seeking. Fucking, I keep getting the name wrong, I have to pause. Yeah, Truth Seeking, also on Threshold FM, live on a Thursday at 7 PM. We were very, very briefly, I think Jimmy touched on this. Anyway, this sort of psychic energy that we're harvesting out of the ground and calling it oil and that, could that be what lithium is? Maybe like the alchemists of the past, all scientists are doing is giving names to things that we don't fully understand. Maybe lithium, the chemical present in many batteries, is actually a sort of ectoplasmic gloop that is left behind from the demonic projections. Perhaps the veins of lithium found in the ground are evidence of the psychic ties between the body and the ethereal being on the surface, but now we dig it up and store it in little metal tubes to be able to power TV remotes, dildos and torches. Maybe we already are enslaving the demons and ghosts, and maybe that's why they're all underground. Maybe our floor is their prison cell, and like how our overlords are probably harvesting our chemical expulsions to harvest the gold particles extracted from food via our digestive system, maybe we're also harvesting the magical lithium from our captive creatures. Let's have one last song, and what a fucking tune it is. This is from Army of the Pharaohs, and obviously it's 7.
Hello! If your third rail is driving you loco, motivate yourself to make a stop at our local family-run business, the Circumcision Station. With 4 skin specialists amassing over 95 years of experience, Competitive prices and aftercare service, you'll be back on track in no time. We offer gift cards and a family plan too. In a rush, not to worry. Our brisk operation will have you in and out in no time at all. Sir, if your nub's in need of nurturing or your Rogers Todgers become a bit of a handful, book a return to the circumcision station. The circumcision station, where every customer leaves a tip.
Another question that I've got is, and I just touched on it briefly there before Seven started. Should we be getting paid to use the toilet? We pay to use toilets, not just in like train stations and bus stations and that, where you got to throw them 25 to 75p, you know, to go for the piss and that. But we also pay for our water bills and things like that, you know, and tax and that, to have the pipes cleaned and cleared away because of people leaving fatbergs and stuff, which is another problem I've mentioned again. But should we be getting paid to use the toilet? Realistically, if I can bag up a load of chicken shit from some pet chickens and I can sell that if I dry it out, what are they doing with all of our piss and shit? I'm being deadly serious now. There are chemicals present in our digestive tract that are made, well, they're not made for it, but they're perfect for extracting gold from anything. So they'll destroy it, it'll remove and burn away or melt away, turn to shit, basically everything. Except gold. Gold is one of the few things it won't affect. Now, I can't remember if it's the sulfuric acid in our stomachs or if it's hydrochloric acid. I think it's sulfuric acid in it in your stomach, which is supposedly, I think, why dragons were supposed to be able to breathe fire. They could probably just bring up the stomach bile and burn things. Saying that like fucking dragons are real, but that's probably where that comes from. But are they harvesting gold from us? Is that what all of this is around us? Is that what is actually going on? Because if you think about what every house has in common all over the world, well, within where you in developed, let's call them developed countries, there's going to be some form of plumbing system where all of that shit and piss is collected. Now, we just used to throw it out the window, but you could say we stopped throwing it out. Like we're made to believe that we had plumbing systems came from the Romans and that, but realistically, in like Victorian Britain, you see and you read about they just threw buckets of piss and shit out the window onto the floor. Now that means that there wasn't a proper plumbing system into the buildings, but it could have been in the streets, and maybe it was someone's job to go and brush it down the hole or whatever, or they come and clear out the shit house with a scoop and take it away on the back of an horse. But technology seemed to jump forwards, didn't it? Sort of around the end of that time. But there was mad scientists and that. There seems to be more mad scientists then than there is now, realistically. But did someone there figure out we can harvest the gold from here? We don't need to be going all overseas to harvest gold. If we can build the population up as big as possible, then we won't need to mine the gold from the floor, because the gold that's going to be coming out of our digestion systems is going to be fucking minuscule, tiny amounts, not even like a fleck, not even like a pinhead, just tiny little bits. But if you could gather all of that from all the population of England, Scotland and Wales, not to discount Northern Ireland, but I don't imagine that there's pipes from Northern Ireland coming into like mainland Britain just to move the shit and piss. They probably have it over there, but just to keep it simpler, Wales, Scotland and England, if you was to collect all of the shit and piss from there, funnel it all out and collect that gold, even if you've only got like a handful of gold, they're already being paid to dispose of the waste, you know, in a clean and effective manner. But then if they can get like a cantaloupe sized chunk of gold from however fucking many million people's shits, like how often do you go toilet? You go like what, you wee, I don't know, 5 or 6 times a day at least. You might go for a number 2 twice a day, 3 times a day. That's a lot there. Now it doesn't even matter, from the research just off the top of my head that I did, I don't think it even really matters what you eat, because there's supposed to be fucking tiny amounts of gold present in everything. Just like there's tiny amounts of everything present in everything, but our bodies seem perfectly attuned to harvesting this gold out of there. So, is there a way that could someone who's very good at like contract law and that, could they get in touch with their plumbing provider and say, under this clause here, and here, you actually owe me X amount of money for the gold that has been passed through your system from my bowels. Now, obviously, it sounds silly, and I know it sounds daft, and I haven't, like I said, I've not got the research in front of me, but it's because I mentioned it a minute ago. It's something that bothered me for ages. Like, what is gathering that? Because I know that it's obviously it gets rid of disease, and obviously it's nice that not everywhere smells of shit. Just the little slip roads you use to go into the motorway normally just is what smells like shit and piss normally. Outside of small towns, big towns, even cities, but they must be doing something with it. Now, there was a rumour back home that they were using human excrement from Wigan to fertilise the soil around us. Now, I don't know how true that is, but I do know that it smelt a lot different. There was a year that smelt an awful lot differently to when normally they'd use pig shit and spread that across the field slurry. But there was a lot of rumours that it was people from Wigan. It was their poo, and they were putting that on fields. And you used to see kids playing it and that, and parents would be like, "Oh, it's fine, it's good for him." And I'd always be walking the dog and be like, "Yeah, but that's like human shit, don't you? Like, it's been treated and that, but it's not animal shit. It's not soil. Like, can you see a hole anywhere? It's mad how many people would just think this was soil from a hole, even though it fucking smells pungent. Like, it makes your eyes water when the sun had hit it. But people would still be like, "Oh, this is great. Let's let the little Timmy roll around in it." But anyway, that was just another little question where I found out some information. So I hope you see what I mean. Where this week's was a bit different. I'll probably do these every now and then, probably like every 15 or 20 or so, whatever number this is. It's 13, and it week 13. I'll try and bring these every now and then, where it's the little questions where I never really led anywhere, or I couldn't fit it into something, because I'm looking stuff up all the time, innit, making little notes and that, like a fucking mentalist. Anyway, let me know what you think. I'll be in the Discord, or fucking find me on TikTok, Facebook. Let me know what you thought of this one, because this is a very different style of episode for me. I've never really done this before. So, this was Pause for Thought. I'm the world around you, and you're listening to Threshold FM. I'll see you in a bit.